Good morning students. Today we will discuss about goods and service tax, that is GST. We will discuss about the meaning of GST, taxes merged into GST, GST rate structure, objectives of GST, types of taxes under GST, accounting procedure. After going through this session, the students will be able to define GST, identify the taxes merged into GST, understand the GST rate structure, explain the objectives of GST, identify the type of taxes under GST, apply the accounting skills related to GST. There are many taxes charged and levied on individuals and body corporate, directly or indirectly. The recent one, the most talked about, is a new tax that is known as GST. GST is a comprehensive indirect tax. It is implemented from July 1, 2017. It is a value added tax levied each time supply, sale of goods and services or both. It is made by a registered taxpayer, except where the goods or services are exempted from levy of GST and where it is provided that GST is to be levied under a reverse charge. GST is paid on purchase of goods and services. It is collected from customers on sale of goods and services. When GST is paid on purchase, it is set off against GST collected, that is output GST, the GST on sale of goods. Characteristics. GST is a comprehensive indirect tax. GST is a value added tax. Uniform rate of GST on goods and services are made across all the states and union territories for similar category of goods and services. GST paid is not a cost. It is an asset. GST collected is not an income but a liability. Benefits of GST: decrease in the cost of goods, ease of doing business, developing common national market, reduction in tax evasion, goods becoming cheaper, attracting foreign investment. Types of taxes under GST. Almost all indirect taxes are merged in GST except customs duty on import of goods, alcohol for human consumption, petroleum, and taxes levied by local bodies. The taxes merged at central level into GST are excise duty, service tax, central sales tax. The taxes merged into GST at state level are luxury tax, octroi and entry tax, purchase tax, entertainment tax, VAT, and taxes on lottery. Students, there are 5 slabs for collection of GST. For essential items including food, there is 0% rate. For common use item, it is 5%. At standard rate is 12%. Maximum goods and all services at standard rate is 18%. Luxury item including tobacco, the rate of GST is 28%. Kinds of GST levied. Students, at central level there is central goods and service tax, that is CGST. When goods are sold and bought within the territory of a state, two types of GST is levied, that is Central Goods and Service Tax CGST and State Goods and Service Tax, that is SGST. In case of Union Territory, there is Union Territory Goods and Service Tax. Integrated Goods and Service Tax, that is IGST, whenever goods are supplied or bought interstate or both within India or import into India and export to another country, the GST levied is interstate integrated goods and service tax, that is IGST. Here also input GST is set off against output GST but in a prescribed order. Who can collect GST? GST can be collected by a person who is a registered taxpayer under GST Acts. Who must be registered under GST? Every person other than those being exempted having an aggregate turnover of rupees 20 lakhs. It means whosoever has a turnover of rupees 20 lakh or more, in hilly region 10 lakh rupees or more, must be get registered under GST. Aggregate turnover includes exempt supplies taxable and non-taxable supplies on all India basis. It is based on income tax pan. Persons exempted from GST: a person engaged in charitable activities, person supplying goods or services, or both that are subject to levy of GST under reverse charge, such as lawyers, owners of copyright. Here they are exempted from GST if the interest rate aggregate turnover is less than the threshold limit of 20 lakhs. It means if your annual turnover is less than 20 lakhs and in hilly region it is less than 10 lakh, then GST is not levied. The lawyers, doctors, person earning royalty from copyright are all exempted from GST. Terms used in GST. Input CGST. It is a central goods and service tax paid on intrastate within state परचेज ऑफ गुड्स. तो इनपुट CGST किसके ऊपर लगता है? जब हम स्टेट के अंदर ही गुड्स को परचेज करते हैं, सर्विस परचेज करते हैं, प्रोक्योर करते हैं, तो ऐसे में जो हमें GST देना होता है उसको हम कहते हैं इनपुट CGST और दूसरा है इनपुट SGST. बोथ आर लेवीड ऑन परचेज ऑफ गुड्स और सर्विसेज विद इन द स्टेट and they are debited along with the purchase. Since purchase is debited, the input CGST is also debited, the input SGST is also debited. Input IGST, it is an integrated goods and service tax on interstate purchase of goods and services or both, or on import and export of goods. It is debited to input IGST account. Output CGST. Output means whenever we are selling any goods to another person, we have to see the output CGST and output SGST. Output CGST, it is central goods and service tax on intrastate sale. Within state, if goods are being sold, the GST levied is output CGST and output SGST. Both are credited along with sales. Output IGST, it is integrated goods and service tax on interstate sale. Whenever there is a sale which has to be supplied, the goods have to be supplied in other state, in a different state, or both, and export of goods and services, it is credited to output IGST. Reverse charge. It is GST paid. It is GST paid by the purchaser of goods and or services on the goods or services or both directly into government account instead of paying to the seller of goods or services. Suppose we are hiring a lawyer, we have to pay directly to the government this GST. GST paid under reverse charge may be CGST and SGST or IGST. There is a pictorial presentation of it. Supply or sales. When it is intrastate, two types of GST will be levied, that is CGST and SGST. If interstate supply is done, only one type of GST, that is IGST. IGST is double of CGST or SGST. Electronic tax register. It is an account of the taxpayer in the books of the authority. It is like a bank passbook showing debits and credits in the taxpayer's account. Taxpayer can view or take print of its account and reconcile credits granted and debits made. If there is any error, it can be rectified. All kinds of entries related to GST are recorded here. In case of intrastate supply of goods and services, for purchase of good, the entry will be purchase debit, input CGST will be debited, input SGST will be debited, and payment will be made to bank or to cash. For sale of goods, whenever we are selling goods either on credit or in cash basis, debtors will be debited if there is credit sale, and if there is cash sale, either cash or bank will be debited. We'll get not only sales money but also output CGST and output SGST in case of intrastate sales. As we have earlier talked, this output CGST or output SGST is a liability which the collector will ultimately pay to the bank, to the government. For purchase return of goods, creditors will be debited and purchase return will be credited. Since initially input CGST and input SGST was levied, it will also be credited along with purchase return. For sales return, goods are coming back. It means sales return will be debited. Along with sales return, output CGST and output SGST will be debited. And by this amount, our debtors will decrease, so debtors will be credited. For purchase of fixed assets, we are purchasing fixed asset. As earlier, CGST and SGST will also be levied on the purchase of fixed asset. It means fixed asset debit, input CGST debit, input SGST debit, and the payment will be made, it means to bank. If we are paying expenses, expenses will be debited, input CGST will be debited, input SGST will be debited to bank. Since all these entries are for intrastate or all these transactions are made within the state. So, two types of GST are being levied. One is CGST, that is central GST, and the other one is state GST. For income, it means money is coming, bank account debit, due to which this money is coming. Due to income is credited to commission received, and along with commission we will get output CGST and output SGST. Sometimes the owner withdraws goods for private use, for personal use, and such goods are known as drawings. Drawings will be debited and purchases will reduce due to this withdrawal, so purchase will be credited along with purchases. Input CGST and input SGST will also be credited. Next is, sometimes there is advertisement expenses, there is loss due to fire, loss by theft. These are losses and these will be debited. Due to this advertisement expenses, when goods are being distributed as sample, the purchase will reduce. Due to loss due to fire, due to theft, purchases will reduce. So 2 purchases and 2 CGST and 2 SGST input. In case of intrastate supply of goods and services, and for setting off input CGST against output CGST. Output CGST is being received by us, so output CGST will be debited and input CGST will be credited, and this will be like this, that input CGST will be set off against this output CGST. Similarly, output SGST, it means state level GST, will be set off. The input state level GST will be set off against the output state level GST. Now, the remaining output CGST and output SGST, the balance of output CGST and output SGST will be paid to bank, will be paid to government. Illustration. Pass entries in the books of Adarsh brothers, assuming that all transactions have been entered in the state of Uttar Pradesh and CGST is 6%, SGST is also 6%. On January 2, 2018, purchased goods for Rs 2 lakh on credit. January 5, sold goods for 3 lakh on credit. Both are on credit basis. The first entry for 2 lakh purchases, purchase account debit, input CGST account debit, input SGST account debit, and since it is on credit basis, creditors will be credited. Similarly, when we are selling goods on credit basis, debtors will be debited. Sales will be credited, output CGST, output SGST, and debtors will have to pay Rs 3,36,000. On January 10, 2018, purchased computer printer for office for Rs 50,000 and payment made by check. On January 20, 2018, legal consultation fee paid in cash Rs 10,000. Rent Rs 22,000 paid by check on January 22. Here are 3 things: purchased computer printer, legal consultation fee has been paid, and rent has also been paid. The first entry will be office equipment account debit, input CGST account debit, input SGST account debit to bank, since we are paying by check. Next is legal fee account debit to input CGST account debit. Legal fee is being paid, so input fee, legal fee